Aloha, this is Lahaina Lee, and this is your Maui Real Estate Advisor October edition 2024. I'm going to start with just kind of a random bit of news that I happened to see. Inter-island ferry service workshops are being held to get input on connecting Lanai, Molokai, and Maui. Meetings are going to be held in Lahaina, Molokai, and Lanai starting on Monday, that's next week, and running all week. Who knew? Turning to the Lahaina wildfire cleanup. This graphic is from the Army Corps of Engineers. Now, the Army Corps of Engineers has done a fantastic job. You can see that of the 1,390 lots, all of those have been cleared, and 1,384 have actually been completed. So that means the drainage, the erosion control is in place, and everything else. For commercial properties, there are 159 lots, 102 have been cleared, 72 are complete. You can also see in this panel that shoring and bracing of historical structures is noted. So none of those have been completed according to this, nor has the debris been cleared. It's a little confusing since the Lahaina Restoration Foundation has actually been raising money to repair some of these places. So the Army Corps has done a great job of working to get things cleaned up. The big question, the one thing that everybody wants to know is, after the cleanup, what's the plan? The mayor is holding regular budget meetings that are open to the public to get input for the next fiscal year. That fiscal year, that begins in July of 2025. That is actually the same date the mayor and many of the council members are hoping to shut down a few thousand short-term rentals in West Maui. That's going to put a big hole in Maui County's property tax income. So it seems reasonable to ask, if you need a lot more money than we have to help rebuild Lahaina, and you're planning to cut off one of the biggest sources of revenue that the island has, how are you going to make up the difference? Well, I can only think of one way. In economic news, and if we're talking economy, we have to talk about tourism. According to a report published by the Research and Economic Analysis Division of the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism for the state of Hawaii, that's a mouthful, about 70 cents out of every dollar spent on Maui comes from tourism, and tourism is down. As a benchmark, most organizations are using 2019, the year before COVID, the last normal year, as a primary basis for comparison to today. So overall, tourism in the state of Hawaii is down a little over 11.5% compared to August of 2019. However, spending is actually up almost 15%. Seems like good news. On Maui, the average daily census for visitors was about 47,000. That's down 26% from August of 2019. For the first 8 months of 2024, there were 1,575,000,000 visitors on Maui. That's down about 17.5% just compared to 2023, and 25% from the first 8 months as compared to 2019. Those are the data. So those are the facts. But in talking to just everyday people, small business owners, restaurant owners, people that own short-term rental properties, property management companies, it really feels like business is off more like about 50%. And then there's my own very non-scientific observations, experiences, including being able to drive right up to the gas pump at Costco without having to wait in line. And also how easy it's been to find parking spaces at Costco, Kaanapali Shores, even the local malls. So it seems like business is down for the local business owners. But what about people that are employed? Well, unemployment on Maui for the last reported period, that was in June, was 4.5%. 4.5% is pretty close to full employment. However, unemployment on other islands is running more like about 3%. So if tourism is down and spending is down, what do you think is happening with real estate? Well, as always, let's do the numbers. So for the last several months, when we looked at condos and the trends, the sales, the inventory, we've been talking about those numbers being skewed by the sale of some rather high-priced luxury properties in McKenna and Wailea that had been under contract for not just months, but years. And so the sales and the prices were skewing all the numbers. So those have kind of cleared out now. And so I think we're going to start looking at what the true trends are going to be. So last month when we looked at condo sales, even though we had 66 sales, a lot of those were that old inventory, and so I concluded that we were really more like 49 sales. So this month we had 50 sales, so that was fairly consistent. We can see that inventory stayed over 700, so we still have 14 months worth of inventory. Now I'm going to jump down to selling prices all the way down to the average sold price first. That was a little over $1.1 million in September compared to over $2 million in August. So that big drop off reflects the closing of all those properties in Wailea and McKenna. The thing that's really interesting about this though is that the median selling price stayed over, well, almost $1 million. But what's even more interesting than that is that the median asking price in the last month was $995,000. The median sold price was $990,000. So he keeps talking about this being a buyer's market, but we're just not really seeing that reflected in the numbers. So that's the story on condos right now. Turning to single-family home sales, in terms of the number of homes that were sold, we can see that that's been a little up and down. So in June there were 65, July 55, August 63, September 51. So up and down, up and down. But if we look down at the pending line, we can see that in July that was 132. In August it dropped to 114, and then September went back up to 129. So maybe we'll see 60 or more sales in October, just because we're following the trend line that's created by the number of sales that are pending. Inventory is something that we always talk about, and we can see that home inventory, that's the number of homes for sale, was just kind of creeping up a little bit, and then in September we dropped back to 335. So inventory has kind of flattened out. As compared to sales, we're at about 6.5 months of inventory, so the market is actually really balanced from the macro standpoint. In terms of actual selling prices on Maui, I'm going to drop down again to the average sold price first, because back in July that was $1.5 million. That rose to over $1.8 million in August, and then over $2 million in September. What is more interesting to me, again, is the median selling price, which went from $1.2 million over $1.3 million, now over $1.4 million. But what makes this particularly interesting, which you can't see here, is the median asking price for September was $1,426,000. The median selling price was $1,428,000. So the selling prices were actually higher than the asking prices. So that's a pretty interesting trend in a market where it's really a buyer's market on a lot of the island. So that's the news on real estate. Little news on rebuilding process over here on Maui. Maybe a few opinions. So if you're watching this on the mainland and you're thinking about coming over, come on over. We've got room. There's plenty of room at the restaurants as well, so come and pay us a visit. If you're here on Maui, I think the economic scene is going to be turning around. We'll get through the elections in November, both local and national. Hopefully we'll get another rate cut, so that's going to help things out. And as it gets colder on the mainland, we can count on some visitors coming back here. So if you're watching this and you have any thoughts or comments, drop them in the comments below. Sure appreciate it. And we hope to see you. From not Lahaina, this is Lahaina Lee saying aloha.